right, welcome to the Engagement Show. This is John Chen. I'm the author of Engaging Virtual Meetings, and this is my amazing co-host, Roger. Hey, Roger.
Hello. How's everyone out there in internet land?
Of course, Roger is with Engagement Unlimited, hailing from the great city of Vancouver, BC. All right, so today's episode is we're going to go behind the scenes of engagement. So I'm going to share a little bit about how I designed this recent talk at for the National Association of Catering and Events, where their experience conference was in Dallas, Texas. And so I'm excited to kind of share the behind the scenes. And Roger is going to break it down too about what are the fundamental aspects that we think about as engagement specialists. So here comes the setup. At the National Association of Catering and Events, they asked for a talk. And so I interviewed the conference organizer. Her name's Ann Harper. Great person. Thank you so much, Ann. And she said, well, okay, so, my thing's usually engaging virtual meetings. She goes, NACE is really burned out on virtual meetings, right? They are ready back for the in-person. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I totally get it. I understand. Especially if you're in the catering business, right? You can't really serve food unless you have people there, right? Box food never ever will hit the marks that you really want, than in-person dining. So I understood that. So I really created a talk, and the talk went around something like, let's see, like this. We called it Engaging Not Virtual Meetings, right? That was the name of the talk.
Nice.
So we had an Engaging Not Virtual Meetings, and so some of the key aspects come around here where, number one, I used a tool called Mentimeter. And inside of this tool, Roger, here, I'm going to show you some of the things that people wrote. So in designing this talk, number one is I wanted it to be engaging. And so number two is I looked at a tool called Mentimeter, which is, you can actually do this now too. If you're watching this, you can go to METI and menti.com or scan this QR code on the screen if it's big enough. Use the code 47464966, and you could actually add an answer here too. So people said engaging is fun or memorable or interesting or interactive, collaborative, and educational. So my first job was to engage the audience right from the get-go of saying what is engaging, and everyone had a different answer, and I thought that was really great inside of that. The next part is that I asked, how engaging are your meetings? And look at this interesting data that we have here, Roger, is that the average is around a 4 to 5, and this is even for in-person meetings, Roger, is that the average is not 8, 9, 10.
No. Well, I mean, John, we know this in the sense that whenever you ask people about meetings, almost everyone says, oh, I hate them. Like, oh my God, they interrupt my day. I spend all my time listening to other people talk about things that aren't important. We have to have all this, time wasted on small talk. So it's no surprise that when you poll people, they say that meetings aren't so effective, right?
And I think that's the surprising part, though, is the in-person meetings are also being perceived as not engaging. But that relates back to the data that we saw. Like one of my good friends who wrote a very good article on Zoom fatigue early on in the pandemic says it's not a virtual problem. It is a meeting problem.
Exactly. Oh, my goodness. That's so true.
So true that the meeting design was broken in the beginning. And the only thing that Zoom does is just magnify how bad it is.
Yeah. And I mean, and the truth is Zoom fixes some of the in-person problems because, when you're in person, you can't do other things for the most part. You're like, all you can do is daydream, right? You can't pull up your phone and do things because people are looking at you. But when you're virtual, and the meeting's crappy, there's nothing stopping you from sideways second screening, right? And so what you find is that meetings virtually can be more more effective, partially just because you give people more time to get things done. That the meeting itself isn't more effective. It's just that they're using the time because you haven't designed the meeting to be engaging. You haven't designed the meeting to be effective. You've designed the meeting to be most meetings are based around time, John. Like we've got an hour.
Yeah.
we got an hour, like as opposed to we have this much stuff to talk about, and that's going to take us 23 minutes. And after 23 minutes, our meeting's over.
So inside of that, right, and looking at engagement, I know the things that are in my process too, Roger, is to customize, right? Because there's nothing more engaging. Like if you know I'm giving the same talk, there are very few speakers. There's like one or two I know in the world who can give the same talk to multiple audiences, only have that one talk, right? But for the rest of us, I think that customization is one of the best ways to create engagement because it says, I think you get me and you're listening to me.
Yeah. And I would argue, John, that the people who do the same talk over and over again actually customize it as well. They
do it on the fly.
Minor little things. They go, as CEOs, and then they talk about that, so I think that those people probably do it on a very fine, nuanced level as well. Anyway, back to you, John.
So the key here for this is that it's NACE. It's the National Association of Catering and Events. And so one of the other engagement strategies is storytelling.
Yeah.
Right? Because in storytelling, you can select a story that ideally should do something on. And my posit for this one is saying, engagement, food is engagement. We're humans. We have to eat, right? And so we still get to have this communal experience. So I told this story, you're going to love this story, Roger, about the best spring roll I've ever eaten. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So I hope you don't mind. I'll take over the screen for a little bit, but tell you this version of the story. So this is the best spring roll I've ever eaten. And for those who, I'll tell the restaurant at the end. So anyways, I went to this restaurant knowing that they're really kind of high end on this food gastronomy side, right? And so they put this on the table on course one. And it's kind of like a set of chopsticks with like a metal ring, right? And then they drape this, looks like a cloth kind of thing, and it's got flowers imprinted. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And now they don't do anything with it. Course 2, nothing. Course 3, they don't pay attention to this thing, don't do anything. But in course 4, they start to bring out something new. So the next thing they bring out is a tray or a dish. And it's a square tray or dish, right? And it has all these little, if you see on the frame over here, there's little dots or accoutrements. They're like seasonings. And then they take off the glass piece for that. And inside of the box are these two arms, right? So those are the two wood pieces, and they fit together like a puzzle. And now they took this thing that was on the table since course 1 and drape it over the 4 points. It turns out it's an edible spring roll wrapper.
Whoa.
Made out of rice paper, and now they put this high-end, beautiful squab inside of it, and now you can take all the accoutrements and season it the way you want it, roll up the egg roll, and eat it.
Okay. So like the reason this is so engaging, like you already have, like, first of all, the story, the title is amazing. The best spring roll I've ever eaten. Who's not going to pay attention to that?
Right.
Secondly, they made it interactive, right? They made it so, like, to me, engagement, there's a ton of different definitions for engagement. To me, I always bring it down to engagement is active participation. If you can get people to actively participate with you, whether that's just leaning in, whether it's just their eyeballs looking at you, whether it's them getting up and dancing, whatever it happens to be, if you can get people to actively participate with you, they're engaged. They're already engaged. That's what engagement is. Okay, I'm going to put up a thing here. Wait a second. So you've said a bunch of things that have already made me go, okay, I gotta say this. Okay, let me go over to here. Okay, so this is, okay, here we go. So this is one of my slides when I talk about the age of engage. And so the age of engage, we talk about what is engagement, why we want it, so beneficial, and then what you do to create it. Like, how do you create it? So at home with your family, at work with your teams, at conferences with, your audience and your participants, how do you create engagement? And so I call it shemps. Like, it's that you see at the front. It's hilarious because I just keep adding letters because it's story and collaboration, competition and humor, emotion, excitement, music, movement, play, positive, passion, surprise, ... And the most important part of that is the ... because it just keeps going. You can find thousands of ways of creating engagement with people, because engagement really is just about participating. So a story is participation. You're going back to your let me get rid of that. So going back to, like, the leaving it on the side was curiosity and surprise. And then,
Yeah.
right, pulling it together and going, oh my goodness, these fit together from earlier, creates all sorts of synergies in your brain going, oh my goodness, I want to be involved with this. So tell me, how good was it? How good did it taste?
It truly is. It's the best spring roll I've ever eaten. And because, the flowers are nasturtiums, the flowers are edible. I thought it was fabric. It would turn out it's rice paper, right? And so let me just go back and highlight the last couple of things with this. Inside of this egg roll, it truly was, right, the best tasting egg roll that I've ever had. It was the most interesting. And so this restaurant is called Alinea. Alinea is in Chicago. So if you ever go to Chicago, hurry and book your reservation now. They are the top in what's called molecular gastronomy, right? Molecular gastronomy is the science of playing with food, of like using and creating these things. And so the best part, Roger, is at the end of the meal, I asked them, I'm like, where did you get this plate? Right? And they go, oh, we had to make it. And then they disclosed the process that they did to create this dish, Roger. At the end of every meal service, all the chefs and all the cooks sit down at the end of, after they clean the kitchen, have a meal together, and they talk about future food ideas.
Oh,
Right?
amazing.
And
So
so,
we, oh, sorry, go on, go on.
oh, I was just gonna say, and so this is where the idea for this came from. And this plate doesn't exist. They literally had to take the drawings to somebody in Chicago where they built like 20 or 40 of these specifically for this restaurant, so they can do this. So that's how special this thing is, and that completely engaged me. So
So you just described something that was so engaging on a very, on so many different levels, and things that I was going to talk about, that it's so funny when we do the talk show, because I don't know what you're going to talk about. You don't know what I'm going to talk about. So this is one of the things that I believe is the cornerstone, the centerpiece of engagement. Like, this is what I hire and fire people in my company called Engagement Unlimited. This thing is what I say I am hiring and firing people based on. And so what you just described there, think about how much fun you had around that spring roll. Think about how much fun you had putting it together and seeing what the pieces were. And oh my goodness, this is rice paper, and having them come out and tell you about the individual plates that they had to make. That's passion. That's engagement. That's you leaning in because you're having fun. That's them leaning in because they're having fun. That's all, both of you creating this synergy of, like, where you go, oh my goodness, I get up after this meal and walk out, and I'm walking out in my brain going, that was an experience I'm going to be telling people about for maybe the rest of my life. This is an experience that I'm going to file away in my file cabinet of memories. And when we talk about like what we want to bring to meetings and what we want to bring to conferences, we talked about this in the past through stories as well. We want people to walk away going, I've got a memory that I can't wait to tell people. I can't wait to tell people about the best spring roll I ever ate, or the best MC I ever saw, or the best conference I ever was part of. How many times, John, do we get comments that say, I've never been so engaged at any conference, whether it's virtual or live. I've never felt so involved in what was going on. And that is where the money is. Like, that's where the magic is. That's where the power is.
let me give you this last piece of magic that came along with it too, is that I'm using a new tool called Takadot, right? And inside of here is that at the end of the session, we asked everyone, gave them a QR code, and this Takadot is designed by speaker. It's my first time using it. But check out these stats. Out of the 20 people who replied, 100% said they found the session valuable. 100% they said they wanted to hear me speak again.
Yeah.
Here's the most interesting one here, right? Yeah. Here's some of the comments that I got. The most engaging session of the conference and the best session I've attended. Wow.
Those are the things that, not only are super like not only are they great to show people to market and to go, you should be hiring, but for people like you and I, John, those type of comments reside in our souls, right? Like when I talk to people and they go, my God, you're so like passionate about this stuff. It's because I bring out things. I go, I regularly get people saying, this is the best session I've ever been to. I regularly have people crying and saying, what you did was life-changing for me. Those things, those comments exist in our souls in a spot that we bring out when we need to feel like we need to be reminded who we are and what value we provide on this earth.
Yeah, does our work matter?
Yeah, because it does.
And of course, you could have the alternative. You could just like have have somebody monologue for 60 minutes, or you could create an experience. So that's, and again, that 60-minute, that's what I saw. I thought that was so interesting because I sat in every educational session prior to that. Mm-hmm. And many of them were back into this old school talk for 30, 40, 55, 60 minutes and maybe take a few Q&A at the end, as opposed to just making the whole thing a conversation. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, right there. Yeah.
So this is one of the things when we are talking about behind the scenes, this is the first thing I wrote down. I wrote, you have got to create structures and you have got to create time for engagement, which means that it's not even just a matter of hiring people like us. That's wonderful, but because we will do these things, but we will also force our clients. Well, I'll sit down and be like, okay, so wait a minute. You just have them sitting down for 2 hours. Where is the thought for them? Like, where is the concern for them? This is something that I believe like wholeheartedly. I wish my last name was anonymous, right? Your brain can only absorb what your bum can endure, right? Like you have to create time and structure for engagement. You have to do that. And if you don't do that, then you are wasting your experience. You are wasting it because there is the difference between I was engaged and I was disengaged is the difference between success and failure. It's as simple as that.
Roger and I are going to continue on this behind the scenes of engagement, like how we design engagement. And Roger, I'd love to hear the last thing for today. Like, what's one piece of advice that you would give to somebody listening to this to help them create even more engagement?
I would like, so first of all, I'm going to write on you, like the apps that I write on you. That sounds so rude. Sorry about that. The apps that you just talked about, like Talkadot. Yeah, man. Like those are things. But honestly, the thing that I believe is the most important is that you need to be thinking about your internal engagement first. Like if you're going to be engaging people, if you want to be the person in front of 500 people, unifying them and engaging them, then you've got to dive into yourself first. So, this is a shameless plug. Where's my book? My book, The Me You Want to Be, is all about how to create internal power in yourself so that you can be the person that you need to be at the moments you need to be it. And when you're on stage, when your job is engagement, you need to be the engager when they need it, not just when you want it to happen. So diving into yourself to think about how you create your own engagement is, I believe, like super important.
I think that authenticity trumps perfection every single time. That is the new superpower. Coming back to this in-person world is that authenticity. So I really believe that. And then my follow-up advice for you is create structure and time for engagement. I'm going to go back to the piece. I designed half of that talk. It's a 60-minute talk. 30 minutes of that meeting was specifically designed for the audience to talk, not me. Not me. So think about that when you go into your next time. That's the kind of structure and time that I create for engagement. All right, because and let me just tell you from the audience seat, I'd much rather hear from a collection of other people than just you for a full 60 minutes. As amazing and as great as you are, right? As amazing and great as you are.
That's hive mind stuff. Like all of us are more powerful and smarter and better than any one of us. So hive mind it up, like create that. And hive mind is created through engagement and through psychological safety, right? All these things that we're talking about. John, so awesome talking with you.
I can't wait. So come here and join us every first Wednesday of the month or around that time for the engagement show with Roger and I. And next month, we're going to break down even more about how to get behind the scenes and create engagement in your next meeting and event. Thanks, Roger.
Thanks, John. Thanks so much.
We'll see you next time.